Welcome to the Setup Lab tutorial. To set up a lab using Genie's infrastructure, we will need to have a user account set up and have joined a project. The project name will be provided by the instructor. In the following video, we use the project name Example Project as our example. For instructions on setting up a user account or joining a project, see the Setup User tutorial. Every lab used on Genie will be a part of a specific project, and each project can be made up of multiple different labs. Each student will have to set up their own labs on Genie. Instead of creating new instances for each student lab, we will be deploying a clone of a pre-configured lab. In Genie, these clones are referred to as slices. This procedure walks you through the steps to take to set up the lab environment. The details can be different for different labs. Perform the following steps to set up the lab environment. First, we'll create a new slice. Log into portal.genie.net with your username and credentials. And under the Slices tab, you'll want to click the New Slice button right here. Make sure the correct project is selected. Input an intuitive slice name that will differentiate your slice from other students' slices. After you've put in a name, click on Create Slice. On the next page, we'll click the Add Resources button located at the top of the slice. This page lets users reserve resources, machines, to be used in the lab environment. From this page, we're able to configure our whole lab environment. Next, we'll apply the RSpec file. At the bottom, we can specify the lab configuration file to achieve the correct network topology. These config files are called RSpec in the Genie infrastructure. For each lab, there should be a lab-specific RSpec file. You need to find the RSpec file in the specific lab instruction. This should be provided to the student or be accessible to the student before they can continue. Note that the following RSpec file that we are using can be used to create a single Genie virtual machine that is pre-installed with VNC Server, WebGoat, WebWolf, Zap, and Firefox. We'll go ahead and get the URL for our slice, RSpec. We'll copy it, and you'll want to select the URL radio button here and paste in the URL for your RSpec. Then you'll want to click the Select button. You should see your virtual machine load up, and this machine will have all the settings we need already pre-configured on it. Now we must select a site that will host our lab. These sites are real organizations that help distribute Genie's infrastructure. Click the Site 1 button located in the middle of the screen to bring up a directory of sites on the left side of the screen here. For optimum performance, we want to choose a site specified by the instructor. For example, if you're using the RSpec provided above, choosing UMKC InstaGenie, located at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, will give you the fastest VM booting time of about a maximum of 10 to 15 minutes. So we'll scroll down here till we find UMKC, and we'll select UMKC InstaGenie. Once we've selected our site, we'll click on the Reserve Resources button at the bottom of the page. It will take several minutes to boot up all the virtual machines needed in the lab. When all the machines are fully powered on and booted into, the color of the topology will change from gray to green, which we will demonstrate once the machine has booted up and is ready for us to access. Alright, after waiting for about 10 minutes for everything to boot up and get ready, we see that our topology has changed from gray to green, and that machine should be ready to go for us to log in and use now. Something you'll want to note is that sometimes the site you selected in step 4 doesn't have adequate resources to set up the lab environment, and you'll end up with a failure message. In this case, you'll need to go back to our previous step 4, and select a different site. Since sometimes the deployment may fail, it is strongly recommended that you leave enough time to set up your lab environment. If you're a face-to-face student, it is usually required to set up your lab environment before coming to class for the lab. During and after our boot up procedure, we can see some information about our machines as they're loading and getting ready. If we go to our details page here on our Manage Resources screen, we can see this information. So click on the Details button and wait for the information to pull up, and you'll see this page. And on this page we have details display for a machine that we have running currently on this slice. In a lab with multiple machines, you would see details for every single machine here. You'll notice we have a client ID. Currently our machine is named vPark. That's what shows up. We have a component ID and some other information, including expiration, the type of virtual machine, and the host name. The important information that you want to pay attention to here, which we will be using in the next tutorial video, Connect to VM, is these SSH commands here. And this SSH command is for your user, which allows you to log into the Genie virtual machine. And depending on whether you're using a Windows or Mac Linux system, there are two different solutions that we provide in order to get command line and graphical user interface connectivity. We will cover those topics in the next video, Connect to VM.